Okay, so one of the big things that kicked off the whole large language model revolution that we see now, where people are using these things as chatbots, etc., was this whole concept of instruction following. So there were a number of key papers that basically talked about this. We had the FLAN papers, but we also had things like InstructGPT from OpenAI. And this really revolutionized sort of how people were using language models. Up until this, people were basically just prompting them in a way that meant that, okay, by getting the next token out, you could get something. But with instruction tuning, we saw a whole bunch of things change. Now, we've seen really good image generations with things like Midjourney and stuff like that over the past few years. But in many ways, the instruction following quality just really hasn't been as good as the large language models. That may be up to this week. So this week, OpenAI finally introduced their image generation model, where they've created a model which is actually a lot better at doing instruction following and a whole bunch of different things around this. Now, over the past few days, we've seen this whole sort of Studio Ghibli or the Ghiblified effect take off with this model, where people are basically turning anything and everything, including a lot of memes, etc., into these sort of Studio Ghibli images. Now, I'm not really interested in the Studio Ghibli thing personally. What I'm more interested in is, could this thing do mind maps? So basically, I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and I was asking, had anyone sort of tried this for mind maps? And so I thought I would try it out. Based on the results and the lessons that I learned getting those results, I thought I'd make this video about it. So just quickly to go through a little bit about the model. So OpenAI, as far as I know, hasn't yet published a paper or anything about the model. If we look at how the images are actually generating, it does look like it's a combination of both an autoregressive kind of style of model, as well as perhaps some diffusion in there as well. Now, autoregressive image generation is not something new. This has been done almost for about 10 years at this point. In fact, if you look at this paper, the PixelCNN, you can see a lot of famous names now with people like Oriol Vignals, who's one of the people in charge of the Gemini models at Google. Aaron van den Oord also did a lot of cool things like vector quantization, which led to sort of the early versions of DALL-E and similar kinds of things out there. But really, since we don't know all the details of actually what it's doing, what I wanted to really look at in here is basically just some of the things of how you can use it and how to get the best results out of this. Okay, so you will see in their blog post that a lot of the time they say best of 8. So they're actually doing multiple generations. And certainly this is one of the things that I found too, that just the same prompt with the same kind of thing in there, often if you generate a few different examples of it, one will be much better than the others. And this seems to hold true with what I'm seeing in their blog post. So the key things that sort of set this model apart is that it's got just a lot better at text rendering. And I don't think we know all the tricks of how they've done this yet, but we can certainly see the results when we've done this out. It's also got a lot better at detailed directions and instruction following in here. It can do things like generate transparent layers. And one of the big things is this whole idea of character consistency, being able to keep a character and go from one image to another image, generating this out. So in the blog post, they have a bunch of different examples of each of the things, like text rendering here. You can see this is a really nice one. Again, best of 8 that they've got there. You've got multi-turn generation, where it can basically generate something, and then through the conversation, you can actually change it as you go along, etc. And then, of course, you've got the really good instruction following that I was talking about. And the other one that's really impressive is this idea of in-context learning, where you can basically give it a number of examples and then get it to generate something out. So the thing that I was really interested in doing is that I've been working on a new agent recently that does the whole concept of first principles thinking, of sort of looking at different things and then using that to help it basically use tools to do reasoning and decision making in a much more agentic way from first principles. So one of the things that I had been playing around with was giving various LLMs direct access to the code and to the plans of this, and getting them to actually make a mind map out. And as you can see here, I've asked it to basically just make a mind map in this sort of Mermaid.js format. And it turns out Claude itself can actually do that quite nicely. and then can even render it out, even though the rendering out is not going to be that great. So what I was curious to see was if I take that, can I then turn that into a really nice mind map using this image generation model? And I'd seen some people do some really nice things with infographics and stuff like that. So I was curious to try this out. So here you can see my prompt is actually very simple in here. Can you turn the following mind map outline into a full color mind map with details and cartoons? Now, I was pretty amazed with what it came back with. So this was literally the first thing that it generated out. Now, it doesn't get everything perfect, and there's errors in the text and there's errors around it. But still, for a first shot kind of thing, I thought this was pretty damn amazing that it was able to generate this mind map out like this for trying it. So then I look at different ways that you could sort of improve this and using some of the things that they had talked about the model. So I would suggest this is exactly what you can do for any particular kind of image generation you want to do with this model. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken some original mind maps that were actually done with the original Tony Buzan software that I think is pretty much defunct now, and he himself has passed away now. But using those as in-context learning and then providing the exact same outline here, I was able then to be able to get something like this out. So now I've got a nice mind map where we can see the different elements that are in there. We can see how they are, maybe not perfect still with the text, etc., but it's certainly done it in the style that I was going for with what we had there before. Now, I thought this was really cool, but I actually really liked the original sort of characters that it had in there. So just using the multi-turn stuff, I was able to basically say, this is really good, some characters in there. And sure enough, now I'm getting something with some characters. I'm getting the different elements. Maybe still you can see like you're going to get some weird spelling and stuff in there. You're going to get, not sure why it keeps spelling some of these things wrong, but it seems pretty consistent on some of them. But you can see we've got nice characters and stuff. Now, the thing I was really curious about was, okay, how much can we push this? Can I actually get it to make some characters out where I tell it what characters? So I asked it to make me some characters from the Westworld HBO show. And you can see that it comes back with a sort of copyright character thing where it says, okay, it can't do it. But it is kind of funny that very quickly they sort of suggest, would you like me to do something in this style or with this vibe? And so sure enough, I said, yeah, can you make me the characters have a Westworld-like vibe? I would really like similar characters to the characters of Ford, Bernard, Maeve, and Dolores. And you can see that, sure enough, it was able to do something in this kind of style. Maybe not exactly, and we've certainly got some weird bits over it, which some might argue kind of makes sense if it's going to have a Westworld kind of dystopian vibe in there. But the thing I started realizing at this point was that in some ways, I've kind of infected it with my earlier ideas. So what happens if I basically just try a new generation from scratch to see what I get out of this? So basically now starting from scratch, rewriting the prompt to basically say, okay, the Westworld-like vibe, telling it which characters I wanted, passing in this style of mind map. Now, I will say that there are other styles that you can do for mind maps. Here I'm doing something a little bit like Mermaid.js, but there's other things like mind map markdown, OPML. There are other ones that you could try that may actually get better results than this as well. But you can see that with this, we were now able to get something that perhaps had a different aesthetic than what we wanted at the start, but it certainly has our characters, although Dolores has got some weird kind of eyes there and people are looking a bit kind of weird. But you can see that often starting from scratch is quite good. Now, obviously, in this case, we didn't sort of use the Buzan mind maps as the in-context learning here. So it came out with a very different look. So one of my friends suggested, oh, why don't you try it with a picture of the characters, but where they're toys, right? So you can see here, this is what we're going to use for the in-context learning. These are I think they're called Funko Pop characters of Westworld, but you can see that they're kind of fun. They're kind of cute in this. Okay, now we're basically saying, can you turn the following map outline into a full color mind map with characters that look like the images above? And sure enough, what do we get back? But a very good sort of outline. We now got the mind map elements. It's looking like we've got most of the text reasonably right here. And we've got these characters sort of interspersed. And it's even kind of worked out that perhaps the characters represent certain things in the theme of the TV show, and maybe that relates to the different elements here. Now, clearly, we've still got errors with text. You can see around a number of places, we've still got some errors with text and stuff like that. But it's certainly interesting to see just how well this is producing this out. And it really reinforces that this model, and probably many to come in the future, are just getting a lot better at instruction following, just like the various large language models have gotten better and better over the years with instruction following and giving us outputs as well. Now, along the way, I was kind of curious that, okay, this thing is probably rewriting my prompts, right? This is something that we know that many of the image generation services use, is sort of like a prompt rewriter or a prompt enhancer. And some of them will let you actually see what that final prompt is. Some of them won't. As far as I know, OpenAI is not letting us see that. So I was kind of curious, and I looked around, and sure enough, it looks like there are some posts on Twitter, etc., where people have tried to sort of jailbreak it and get the system prompt of what's going on. And it does seem that the image model may actually be a tool. So I'm not necessarily convinced here that this is actually the 4.0 Omni sort of image out of that model. I suspect personally that it's probably a different model that they're using, especially just by the fact of how it's generating. But asking it different tasks where I basically said, outline what you do and how you reason before making an image. It is interesting to sort of see, and it's given me two choices here of where it's sort of understanding the goal, extract some key elements, decide the format, compose the prompt, run image generation. You can see even here, we've got this image gen text to image tool with compose prompt and settings in there. And it looks like in here, it originally started generating an image and then it stopped it, right? I guess I should be selecting I prefer this response in here. So this is kind of interesting just to see what it's doing, etc. So just to finish up, if you haven't tried this already and you've got access to the model, and if you could actually get it to generate out, you can see even Sam Altman is tweeting out, basically asking people to chill out on generating images because their team needs to sleep. But if you do have access, you should certainly try it out. You should find some in-context learning examples. You can see here I'm doing the same mind map, but in a Leonardo da Vinci style, where I try generating out different versions of this. And notice, okay, what works, what doesn't. In this case, clearly the numbering didn't work, and I wanted it in a 16:9 format. So after a multi-turn conversation, I'm able to come up with something like this, which is certainly getting at what I wanted. Now, I'd probably want to take this back to the start and incorporate the changes into the original prompt and try generating from there. And maybe even using this as the in-context learning for this. But anyway, as you can see here, I'm having to wait a bit after generating so many images before I can generate the thumbnail for this video. So you should definitely get out there and start playing with it and trying it out yourself. I'd love to hear from you what you're actually generating that's not Studio Ghibli. Are you noticing some really good hacks or tips about how to make the text absolutely perfect and not just slightly perfect? And what have you been able to generate that's not just sort of like a standard meme, etc.? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what you guys think. As always, if you found the video useful, please click like and subscribe, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye for now.